Yeah. Just say a few words. But I feel like I've introduced myself first. I'm the new one. Let's say welcome. So I'm very happy to have here Professor Giuseppe Riccardi. He's the founder and director of the Signal Interactive System Lab at the University of Trento. He comes so many research contributions. The speech and natural language processing community knows him very well. So he published more than 170 papers, and he had experience also in the industry and academia. And basically, I just want to mention one of his contribution, which is kind of famous in the community, which is the Relati system. Basically, it's the first pioneer work on a large vocabulary speech recognition with natural language understanding, which was the foundation of what we call the Relati system in AT&T, which is now a product available for many enterprises like Home Depot, United, Nationwide. It's called now AT&T Stone. It's still used by millions of people. So I think he's going to talk about an interesting project, European project called SENSEI. Thank you for coming and welcome.
Well, thank you, Pino, for the nice introduction. We're in Trento, in Italy, somewhat between Milan and Venice, but a much nicer project because we're right next to the mountains, and our university takes much of the space. And it's really town is owned almost by the students. So it's a great place, different from US, but since I moved to university, I had also other collaboration with other companies, and I guess that's one of the reasons why I'm here is also to share some of the crazy stuff we do in terms of how detached it is from your own real problems, and see if we actually see the same thing from different point of view, and also tell you about what's going on in some part of the research areas. So what I decided to do is to briefly review the research agenda of my lab, which is based on what I've done in the past and some very recent new avenues that I'm exploring, and also use the description of what's going on at the European project level that I coordinate to describe a couple of topics that might or might not, I don't know, but it says a lot about what we're doing in natural language processing and its application to discourse parsing and summarization. So if you have to ask me about what we're doing at my lab, one of the main threads of the research we do is about analysis and interpretation of human signals as they are generated consciously or unconsciously in interactions between humans in the first place, and second place between humans and machines, which actually is one of the core research topics in my lab, human-machine interactions. Now, historically, I work a lot with my colleagues on speech and language in general, so that instantiating speech and text. But 20 years ago, doing research in automatic speech recognition pretty much would take the whole channel. It was about speech when we talk, right? Now, when we talk about text, it was pretty much newspaper. Now, it's a lot of different manifestations of language, and in some cases, we're actually new, right? When we chat, it's new, right? When my daughter tells it or shares with me some issues with chatting over WhatsApp, I understand it's like a new avenue, right? Remember how hard it was to learn how to email, right? And how many lessons you learned by just typing that word? You say, oh my God, I didn't want to, but then it's there forever. Okay? So it's these signals, again, some of them are old, some of them are still there, and we still don't understand, some are new. So one of the important components of what we do is speech processing, natural language processing. And as I was mentioning, one of the latest, last 5 years, we're also looking at biophysiological signals in terms of galvanized response, EEG, TPG, and all sorts of acronyms that come from things that we get from the sensors or our wristbands, but also, for instance, EEG caps that now we, for instance, experiment both with wireless and wired. And again, these are part of a human interaction. So we collect as people live their life or interact with people. So just to give an example, which I will not talk about, we do experiments with doctors in the hospital to track down what's going on in your life and what's your mental, emotional state for people that suffer from hypertension or irritable bowel syndrome, right? A lot of doctors don't understand, because we figure out what's phenomenal, they to understand what's going on at the level of the autonomic nervous system, or simply reading their diaries. So a lot of research that we're doing, very excited, that I'm not going to talk about today. The other important part is that we usually like to take some of the algorithm parsers that we learn into a human-machine interaction system, evaluating different contexts, mentioned telecom, the other is mobile. And last but not least, I wanted to give you a sense of what I've done in collaboration with my great colleagues, starting from the left. I was mentioning here, there is the real first thing we presented to the NLP executives was on an Indigo workstation SDI, and Kino was there. And here there is another one also with Kino recalls. This was like a virtual assistant with also multimodal interaction. And also we work here with, since I'm a lot of other metaphor interactions with avatars or augmented reality design an app that would use speech and as a recognized object, it would overlay over the physical scene, work on dialogue modeling, improving over dialogue for mobile assistants. Also, my group was the only one selected outside of the US to collaborate with IBM to work on the Watson Jeopardy system that won 2011. So probably the only one that worked on two Watson. In fact, in the office, the Watson from AT&T was the recognized with this one. And then on the right-hand side, it's pretty much where I'm going, 2037, which is pretty much where they're going to be out, or where I'm going to go because it's time to retire. We're working toward what I call personal healthcare agents, okay? And it's something that we're really excited about, and we're working with doctors, health professionals, to understand how to design this virtual. It could be to a robot, could be an avatar, could be your hologram. And it's really exciting field, this one. Anyway, so going back to our agenda for today, a lot of what we do is based on core research on language modeling and understanding. No surprise there. For the analysis of conversation, and then we do a lot of work on dialogue and discourse, which I'm going to talk about later. And so the another I talk about is on behavioral models. That's why in my group, which is multidisciplinary, we have psychologists, neuroscientists, computational linguists, and speech scientists. So now let me get into the heart of the European project, SENSEI. So I don't know how much you know about Europe. Pretty much it works a little bit like, I cannot make it a comparison. Europe gets money from all the countries, and then they set up calls for proposals, and people apply, and there's a selection. It's very, very strict. So here we come with the European project with a consortium of partners. SENSEI was started in 2013, and I'm coordinating this project. And this is the mantra, making sense of human-human conversations. We have 6 partners. We have University of Sheffield, we have University of Marseille, we have University of Essex, University of Trento, and then we also have 2 industrial partners. We have Teleperformance, which some of you know is the largest outsourcing call center, and also a company, what we call in Europe small and medium enterprise web sales, which is in the field of social media monitoring. What is the motivation? So in Europe, at least the officers like to see a vision, kind of where we want to have impact. And in this case, this was good because that's our vision from the academia point of view. Because the two research and also application fields were divided between everybody doing speech, everybody doing social media analysis. So what I want to put together is these two threads, conversations, and understand from a parsing perspective, from an analysis perspective, from a representation perspective, how different they are, and also challenge ourselves. Now, in terms of conversation, again, 20 years ago, we would only think about telecom or call center, but now conversations are all over, okay? And so just people talking about something, okay? There's a famous Italian writer just died a few weeks ago who might know is Umberto Eco. He used to say, and when they ask, oh, what do you think about internet? Well, internet is about some just imbeciles, you know, and hanging in there and writing about yes, right? So there's a lot of noise, let's call it noise, okay, that people make. Some people actually structured noise, so people set trends, some people set opinions, some people set some strategic topic that they want people to talk about. Sometimes things are more focused, like for instance, on the referendum, right? Now there are bloggers that write about the reason why UK should be in Europe and England not. And or there are politicians that drive this by writing articles, or journalists from a particular party. Now this is real. In other words, depending how this conversation will flow, they will self-organize, it's going to make a difference in a few months. Because if UK is out, first of all, it's going to cost a lot of dollars, but also going to change how we move in Europe, but also from outside of Europe, people are concerned about it. So it's real. It's not just talking about, okay? It's going to affect how people perceive what it means. Because some people don't even know what it means. And so this is just an example. And in fact, one place where we want SENSEI to have an impact is for people to understand, to learn about this conversation. Is so to structure, summarize. And the last kind of conversation are the say more customer-oriented conversation. So again, that's why we call them this company, because they handle conversation calls on various channels, like for the contact center, but now companies are managing very, in a very shy way, also conversation over Facebook, or their Facebook page, or their tweets and so forth. No, they still don't know how to master and manage customer care over these channels. So a plethora of conversations, and also type of conversation interfaces that we were trying in SENSEI to master in terms of the analysis, interpretation, and last but not least, we want to define what does it mean to make sense. Okay? The reason why we put that in the title of the project is because we want to be provocative. Because everybody understands making sense, but what does it really mean from a hard point of view, hard academic point of view? Well, the way SENSEI distinguishes itself from any other research project on social media monitoring or speech analytics is that we want to set this equation, which is missing the equal sign, but we wanted to set a point for we're going to do the analysis, interpretation, summarization of conversation for only one reason. Because at some point, at the end of the tunnel, it's going to be the user. And we need to define it. So making sense will be making sense for the users, and we need to create use cases. We need to create, analyze who's going to read this, who's going to make decisions on top of it. So in SENSEI, in fact, we decided to take two use cases. One is the call center, where we have dynamic conversation with people in real time, speech channel only. And on the other side, we have a conversation occurring on a social media environment, in particular, conversation that start off articles published on news sites. So, for instance, we have The Guardian, and we follow what happens when a paper, an article, let's say, on gay marriage or whatever other, let's say, important topic generates a whole slew of conversations, and analyze how conversation self-organized in terms of replies to particular bloggers, if that blogger is a leader, if that blogger is a laggard. You understand also from the participant point of view how this conversation is evolving. It's very different from this one because, first of all, it's man-to-man, is asynchronous, and it's not in real time. And if you know about these fields, you know that people start blogging, especially if they're laggard at a certain time of the day. While the bloggers that are leaders tend to blog all the time, like their own day job. Very different. So one thing we did was to spend quite some time on defining and evaluating what is a summary, right? So quite a long ago, well, not quite a long ago, people defined quite ambiguous way a summary in terms of a reductive transformation of source data. Okay, this is very, it's true. It's not like we could say it's not true. It's very academic oriented. In fact, you know, even the evaluation methods that came out of this are what we call intrinsic evaluation. Okay, and they're not geared to be accepted, for instance, from end users like journalists. They want to use my system, or quality assurance professional, or execs. They want to know how are my customers doing. Okay, they want to have a very could be a 2 or 3 sentence snippet answer to that question. So that's why we brought in the companies that help us figure out who are this end users and how can we influence our summary definition. So we've done a lot of work on this. We defined what the skeleton of a summary is. We've done it for social media conversations. And for instance, just give you an example here. For social media conversation, we took the metaphor of the journalist that goes to the town hall, right, meeting, has to come up at the end of the meeting with a report, right? And so when you go get trained, pretty much you get this trained about how your summary of town hall meeting will be. And which means track, you know, what people were talking about, why people were, you know, giving that kind of answer, why, so try to answer why kind of questions, how people were approaching the issue, you know, how it was divisive or not, what they were talking about, and who was talking about, and how to aggregate the groups. Now, as I said, we spent, especially the first part of the year, to analyze and evaluate this. So we took this summary, and we had a journalist or would-be journalist to analyze and give us feedback. So we came down to a pretty good, stable structure for the summaries for these cases. We wrote reports that are publicly available. We also published data sets that is for shared tasks. It was in last year, there was with Site Dial. We organized a shared task for these 2 use cases. We also have data. And we also have the use case evaluation. Now we are in the last year of SENSEI, and we're going to run finally the evaluation of our summarization systems with the real people. So that's kind of where we're going. Okay, so on this one, I can, well, I don't have time to say more, but again, I wanted to redirect you to the website, which we keep it pretty updated with what we do. Now, what I wanted to do is go and talk about some of the tasks, the research areas that we're covering. In SENSEI, we cover, there are people in the consortium, including a research center working on semantic parsing, how to adapt to the analysis of conversation, speech, and social media. Semantic parsing, which means to look at the paralinguistics of the conversation, to understand emotion, attitudes, opinions, and what we call affective scenes. And there is the last two parts, which are in the pipeline already, of analyzing the conversation, discourse, parsing, and summarization. So what I'm going to do in the rest of the talk is tell you about what we do with Trento, and of course I won't go through each of these topics, but this represents, in a way, the infrastructure and the pipelines that we have to do each of these topics, in particular summarization and discourse parsing. Now, discourse parsing. Basically, 7 years ago, we were looking at dialogue models that would go beyond the typical information retrieval metaphor, a la Siri, to be clear. And we realized that we need to understand the discourse. And discourse is still a topic of research which is relegated to some subgroups of computational linguistics. So I was talking with various friends, including Aravind Joshi, and we met with them and talked about some ideas about how to use discourse parsing for discourse model, and that's why I got to know what he was working on, along with Rashmi Prasad and him. They led this effort in annotating and this discourse relations. So here is the problem and the motivation. The idea is that if we're able to extract relations from sentences or clauses into from a conversation, we should be able to understand, in the particular case of the Penn discourse tree bank, the coherence of text, right? So if you look at the sentence, the computer is presumably not working because the video signal is kind of fuzzy. It's not just a simple word sequences. It's not just simple the sum or the word to verbs, okay? That is not just that. So to explain the coherence and why this is related to this and bound to this one, you need a relation. In particular case, is a causal relation. And probably here, I want to say that these two are related by this word, which is called connected. Okay? It serves the role of a predicate, same way as with the NP with the verb. And here, if I'm able to pass this relation, for instance, I would be able to answer points like why the computer was not working, right? If I have it indexed, my text, I would be able to say, oh, I don't think I can resolve this. I have my relation, and I will plug in the query, and it should out. Okay? Other examples is, for instance, we apply this also to biomedical text. The idea is to get all the publications and understand hypotheses and experiments, theories of people that have made experiments and do this. So this was a great idea. And so since, again, the last 7 years, I have 2 PhDs doing this and also still working on this, very excited about this. This is what also is interesting about this type of discourse relation. This is in contrast to the other approach, discourse parsing, which is top-down, because, again, coming from speech, I know how noisy can be speech, and I needed, and I want a model that was robust, okay? So, for instance, imagine this text, I never gambled too far. In particular, I quit after one try, whether I win or lose. Okay? Again, what is the hold this sentence together? What is the coherence? Why they make sense together, and what is telling? Is this totally independent from this one? No. And there are some words that play an important role to gluing this together. In particular, in discourse relation of this kind, we have, as was mentioned to you, a word or a group of words that plays the role of a predicate, and that's called connected. In this case, is it explicit connected because I can read it, okay, and I can see it. Because the other alternative that is implicit. You will say, well, implicit doesn't happen very much. Well, actually, the opposite. We have as many explicit as implicit connected, more or less like 50-50%, both in text and speech. So that's what we did also. We analyzed speech and looked at the nature of this relation in speech. Now, there are questions about, and there's some critique about this kind of relation as opposed to have a full pass of the conversation. For instance, should you really have two arguments, so-called R2, which is syntactically bound to the connected, and R1, which might be in the same sentence or not? Okay. Yes, pretty much they've done and run experiments and annotation in many languages, and yes, they found the two arguments was plausible and acceptable hypothesis. And the other is the sense label of the connected, which we need to find. Well, what is the taxonomy? There is a taxonomy. Some at this level is very important because we have temporal relation, comparison, expansion, contingency. Then there are the two layers. By human agreement, kind of falls a little bit at that level. So, as I was mentioning, there's been one, probably the largest, I believe, annotated corpus on this, which is the Penn Discourse, but also other annotations. And I believe we have also probably the only annotation of speech corpus with Penn Discourse relations. There is also, and this is going to be the second year now, shared task on discourse parsing. Last year, our parser was good position, was runner-up. It's got a lot of subtasks starting from the connective detection, sense, classification, and other tasks that are not registered, but I would like to point you to this paper, which is from last year parser, but also give you some intuition about how it goes to be applied in some cases. For instance, the sentiment analysis, where if you use a lexical-based classification system, you get reasonable results. For instance, on who you use the red code for negative sentiment, and the green one for positive one. So this is what you will get pretty much in terms of visualization of a sentiment analysis system. Well, how good it is, okay? I'm highlighting some words. But if I read that reviews, I was worried that the process to upload data from region listing would be complicated. Likely was a breeze. So this is a positive or a negative, which is a real question. Yeah, just two negative words. One, wishy-washy, but that's what most of sentiment analysis products do. So what about if we're able to parse that review and actually identify the coherence of that sentence, okay? So that I understand that a very important point in the review is this connective bind. Very important. They bind the positive part to the argument 2, which is syntactically bound to the connective, and contrast it with the negative one. Okay? That's kind of the idea. Then there are other ideas that I would be happy to share with you if you have any ideas how to use the discourse part, but something that I mean, we will have to apply it to various tasks. Another component of our discourse parser is the is another relation that we worked on, and it has been a relation that some other folks have been working on, especially in social media, for social media. And there is the agreement-disagreement relation, which usually is part of a relation that is part of, let's say, rhetorical structure, theory, and it's part of, again, full parse. But again, we like a bottom-up approach, if you have not understood that. So we took the same approach here. We identified this to be a very important relation because we're analyzing what people say about something. That's a very important way to summarize what happened. And this relation in itself was relevant. So rather than use a top-down approach and again, run an RST, parser, blah, blah, we said, okay, let's focus on understanding this relation alone, which to me at the time it was not an easy one. Not easy to agree. It was not easy to disagree. Actually, not very easy to disagree, but not very easy to agree. And so what we did, we treated like the clear relations, a la Penn distance feedback, and what we did here, following same intuition, we used the topic of a conversation or a part of a conversation as the binder of this relation. So what we're doing is we had a pragmatic definition of this relation, but also as a semantic component because the relation is also bound to the topic. Because of course we have to agree or disagree about something. And that's the idea. So this is related to also what we do in speech for synchronous conversation when we agree and get some dialogue acts specific to this. So it's not that. It's more about this, and there's been some work in the last 2 or 3 years about defining this relation, and there are various parameters how you define this relation because the space, you have to define the space, right? If you on a trail of messages, you have to define if you agree about what somebody just said or what was the source of the article, what was said. So you have to define this vicinity. And people have followed different approaches. In particular, the work we did as we started to annotate the data followed a we looked at 2 ways. One is to look at the level of sentences, the other level of messages, which give us 2 different horizons for understanding this relation. So what we do, we actually define the relation, ADR relation between a comment and a blogger, the generates this comment, with respect to the parent, okay? As of now, the implementation we have, we don't go beyond, we don't skip 2 levels. Because again, we haven't not done that experiment. Also, the space will be much larger. Some other folks have done. We've done some initial experiments with some annotators to see if the space can make sense to annotate, but so far, not interesting results. So we really stick to the ADR relation between a comment and its parent. Okay? The values of this relation are, there are 3 values. So agreement, disagreement, and not applicable. Now, if you read the paper, when we analyze this, there is a good chunk, let's say, that falls under the category of non-applicable because there are ways people express their agreement, disagreement, which is not really easy to understand or classify, like sarcasm or irony really gets very tricky. So for now, this is the paper we published. We left it separate. We're actually working on that case to understand it's pretty tricky. So, and we focused on 2 cases where we could have annotators to be more confident. And so the ADR parser that we have does things like this, starting from a post from a particular blog or a particular point in the conversation tree. We will identify a topic. Let's say here, the 5-star political party will return 5 million US Italian citizens. Okay? So what here the other blogger is referring, that is what each party should do, well done. Okay? So that is referred to return. And we have an annotation tool that we're sharing for people that wanted to share or just use it for their own purpose. But where we actually, when we define the twofold, we also define the topic. Sometimes the topic is not easy, so we'll leave some freedom to take to the annotators to leave that free.
So what's the topic here? That's just the word return?
Yeah, so here what the agreement is about this return, and the fact that it's going to return the money to the citizens.
What's the description of the document? Is it like humanly?
Yes, so the annotator will write return as a topic. Okay. As it was, I guess, mentioned before, these two, the classification of these two categories is not symmetrical in terms of performance because disagreement, pretty much annotators are confident. On agreement is a bit less, but still acceptable. And all the details are in the paper. And again, we are sharing the annotation tools if you like to customize or also propose a task. Okay.
Well, if you do dependency process like you get the link like set what is the topic, which is probably not just return, but a little bit more extended. Dependency process.
Right now, there's a paper we submitted where we're doing analysis of the features, and we're not getting the expected, let's say, return in terms of features. I don't think we've done the dependency. No, we've done the discourse features and dependency, and it wasn't given us a boost. But again, this is still on the work. That's why we're also looking for other people to either use the tool, share the data, organize a shared task. Again, there is some signs that there is some attention to discourse parsing lately. Again, I was telling you now there is going to be a new shared task on English, Chinese. Could provide new data set or tasks. Okay, so the last topic I'm going to talk about is summarization, and then I will end with a couple of demos which shows how we put everything together onto our system, and show us also some more what I talked about. So summarization. Again, the funny part, and I'll tell you a story that, for instance, when we talk to our friends in the call center, and when we might get in production, we got lots of this, we got lots of conversations. How many conversations do you listen to know what's going on? 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the scale of number. Well, we have millions of calls coming in. So you think, well, I would say with the academician hat, it should make sense to summarize what people said, right? Well, apparently not always is what you think it makes sense is what makes sense to them. Really. So this is the typical disconnect sometimes that are, but also because, you know what the technology can do, you never think about it. So when we...
I think the problem there is they don't compare things that far. Otherwise, they will jump in.
Yeah. So now that we're spending, like this is the third year with this guy showing them the stuff, now they're actually coming back with ideas. Like for instance, I remember before we were talking about search engines, and they use some search engines, right? And then they think about, well, I could use the summaries in the search engine. Duh. Okay? But if you get them into this creative process, this thing is not going to go. Okay? It's going to become an academic exercise. So we work on extractive summarization, but that's mostly for the baseline. I'll show you later. One thing I want to show you about some of the new stuff we're doing on abstractive summarization, and this is, in a way, probably the more interesting part of the summarization as a whole. So in other words, take this whole conversation, let's say 5-7 minutes on both sides, and figure out in 1-2 sentences what happened. It was relevant. Okay? Of course, relevant to somebody. No, it could be different, right? What happened, describe what happened, might change depending on who's on the other hand. Could be the IT guys, they were oh, it was too much whole time. But yes. This other guy wants to know, okay, what did happen at one? Or what they're asking for. Okay? So this is quite a challenge to select such a summary. And we do this for both speech and social media. I'll tell you here more the story about speech, and then show you in the demo the social media part. So again, here we have an update on the pipeline that we use. We're using a bunch of front-end text processing, the parsers there, and we also have three main threads in the pipelines we use. One is for the template generation, which includes also the language model train we use for ranking, and the other one is the summary generation. Now, this is an extension and improvement. They'll show you where all the, I know some of you knows about the system that Giuseppe Carenini, who's one of the collaborators, designed. Huh? So the idea is, in template-based summarization, is that first of all, you have to find a way, that's the first pipeline, to generate from manual summaries an abstraction of what the summaries might be. Then, also this manual summary that is generated offline will give you also, will generate a module of the language model around. So in other words, another yet abstraction of what the kind of summaries we will need to generate. And then we have the right-hand side here is the pipeline which will generate online decoding time, test time, the actual summary. Okay? So I want to just to traverse this pipeline only partly to tell you also something that is the most characteristic part of this summarization system. That is the abstraction part. So the idea here is to start from the summary sentences and the transcript and come up with a community. Okay, a community which I don't know why they choose this term because still doesn't get into me. But in any case, a community is a set of conversation. So given the conversation and its transcript, we're going to extract some of these sentences and link them to a summary sentence. So that's the idea. And how are we going to do this? Well, there are heuristics which we've investigated, and we're going to select some sentences, so say 4, 5, whatever, from a conversation, and we'll do it by comparing in a certain metric space how similar they are. So you can do it at lexical level or more abstracted level of WordNet, or last but not least, word-to-back, which this is the first time after 45 minutes when I mentioned neural network. Actually, I didn't say neural network. It was good. Yeah, but if you go to the later to conferences, it's just the opposite. But actually, it's a good success story, actually, because when I talk about word-to-back, usually I use it in the lecture because it's good didactic-wise, fine. But actually, this is the first time we have some success story. So here is the template generation. And to give an example of how we run the system. There is the target, one of the manual summary we generate. The client is following the protocol with IRIS-Stream. Run it as subsidized. Okay? So this is a summary sentence, something that I will actually listen to or read through the call, and that's what they came up with. Then we do the first step. Yeah. And we generate this labeling with the acronyms using WordNet. And what you read in red is actually what's being matched by the SENSEI, and what's in red is what was not there. So the word Irishman was not there. So we give it just a catch-all category along with this other speech. Then we have the clustering and fusion of these templates. We get another level of abstraction there. And then we create the communities. Now, this is an example of, I mean, again, all the details about the summarization system are there in the paper. I just want to point you to one of the most characteristic parts. And in particular, there is the community creation. This is an example of a summary This is for the AMI corpus, which some of you know. It's a multi-party meeting corpus. So there's the speech component as well. And if you read it, it's a good summary. It makes sense, okay? And imagine an hour of meeting summarized with so this is the reference and this is the author, right? Although project manager opens the meeting to use their project, group also recommends the group rather than the remote control, and so forth. Okay?
How big is the original sentence?
Say again?
How big is the original sentence? So this is the automatically summarized result, right?
This is the automatic.
Yeah, but so how big is the original?
So top one is like somebody manually listened to the meeting and that's what it is. The meeting was around an hour. That's what you asked me.
About an hour.
1 hour of multiple people.
Oh, 1 hour.
Talking to each other.
So you mentioned there are multiple people too.
So imagine you have to listen to that, and then you have to come up with summary, but this is done automatically.
Okay, I can.
So yeah, some results that just wrapping up in a paper and submitted, and gives you a sense. So we use this data also to organize the shared task in September. And when we did it, none of the system actually could be in September the extractive-based summarization. So extractive-based summarization are summarization system, which is pretty much there by extracting surgically sentences from the conversation and putting them together. So there's no abstract. Okay? So this is what's on top here. Okay? And here we use the rouge, okay, which is the brother or the sister of the, used for machine translation. Okay? And here we have three corpora, any which is English, multi-party meeting. Here we have one, which is an Italian corpus, called Sempre Dia, which originally is in Italian, but we also have the translation in English so that people read Italian, but also to see how well it does on English. So we have three different essays. So the baseline, the extractives are pretty strong because when we did the shared task, nobody was able to beat them.
These are Rouge 2 or Rouge 2?
Rouge 2. And here we have the abstract summarization system, which do automatically create this community. And I will tell you the core component of the communication is to design how we're going to match the abstracted one with the manual summary. That's the core part. And we try different magic, different distances. So for instance, we did it on all the sentences of the conversation at the token level, and it was doing worse than this standard bit. Okay? Let's keep in mind. So in other words, you just take the whole thing. It's going to be a lot of noise, junk, all. But as soon as we start selecting the four top in terms with respect to the distance we're using, then we actually start getting much better than the whole conversation, and we improve on the extract-based summarization. And the success story I was mentioning to you is that when we used word to back, which the whole thing was to cope with the sparsity, blah, 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 actually, we don't want to be giving us best performance. Some cases, it is doing a lot better. We probably think on the English side, it is much better here. It's doing much better.
What was what to be trained on?
Say again?
What was what to be trained on?
This is the English is one off the shelf.
Okay, the billion word one.
Yeah. In the Taiwan is one that we have trained in the course. So again, a good success story. Yeah, it's very small. For Word to Back. Now I want to show you some demos, which really takes into account everything really. And I'll show you first the speech summarization demo. Do you see it on your screen?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so here this is summarization demo that is works from the ground up, takes the conversation, it runs segmentation, automatic transcription, and annotations. So what you see on top of there are really like four components of the dashboard. The top of the left, we have call analysis in terms of speech and speech. And then we have, for instance, this is a kind of a summary statistics for certain kinds of people, like IT people. Here we have Discourse. For instance, here I have a PhD student who is working on an aspect of Discourse which is relevant in spoken conversation. And there is turn taking, right? So she's taking this whole problem, which actually, and map it into its classification. So we have a taxonomy for turn taking. And this is one of them, component of this taxonomy, which is competitiveness versus non-competitiveness or speech overlaps. Right? When we're talking, right, I might take you a turn, but not to be a threat, because you accept it. Otherwise, in other cases, actually it's competitive. So this is the distinction. And we found this aspect of the turn taking dynamics, that's very important to predict the emotional state of the person at the end. This is one of the discourse aspects that we're showing there. Then we have the behavior analysis, which we're going to talk about today, but there we work on the recognition and classification of basic emotion like anger. You know, anger is one of the oldest angry throughout evolution, and we just need to get rid of it because it makes a lot of damages. It's not a joke, it's real. Then we have other things which are not as old, and which actually part of more of the human world, that's empathy. Actually, this is we are the first one to work on empathy. And some psychologists think it's the one way to basically cope with this other basic emotion, anger.
But if we take away anger, then no one comes to the president.
Yeah. Well, if everybody get rid of anger, we're going to put him in the cage with all the other animals. And then, I'm sorry, let's see here. I don't know why. Anyway, and here there is the whole transcript documentation that was generated by our transcription system. For instance, this could be used by the engine to index all the terms and all that. So you see that this whole analytics report is good for different kinds of processes. Like this could be a machine process, which takes this whole thing, index it, and people can just search it. The top one, which I showed, is more for professional or exec that can, I don't know why I have this. Then I have the social media summarization demo. Here we have, representing, as I was mentioning to you, the idea is to have a linear representation of the conversation, color coding that is used by us to classify the relation. So, for instance, the ADR relation, agreement, disagreement, computing the consensus, general consensus, or it could be local consensus. If we click on the message, we can tell what is the relation between that message and the previous one. Then there are ways to zoom in and filter out the conversation on a particular topic, for instance. And here you have small kind of focus summaries, which take into account some features that express. If a topic was divisive, so we will report that a particular topic was divisive for the bloggers, or we can track bloggers. If there are bloggers that are kind of clustered around a particular consensus towards a topic, so there's a blogger analysis, topic analysis. And now, for instance, we worked to design a website and use some of this technology, for instance, for the UK referendum. And So that's kind of exciting. We'll share with you as soon as we have it. I don't think you're following that much UK referendum on this side. Not much. You didn't even know that it was UK referendum. Okay. You're right. You're very busy with the candidate presidential candidates. You're right. One thing at a time. Okay, so we'll just wrapping up. We spoke about some of the discourse class research activities, or like to hear or here. I mean, just basic some ideas that you might have on how to use it, or if you want to use it, again, we can share tools and data. Then the other idea that I share with you is about summarization for a purpose, and I believe in many company organizations, this is very much needed, but otherwise it's too much into an academic role. So design the summarization system and output based on the end user. Okay? Now, one thing we found in this whole process, especially working, but also on the speech side, is that actually visualization is a very important component of this whole thing. And that's also very important for putting together. All right, so we'll take questions. Thank you very much.
With social media, how do you adapt to new acronyms, especially on a platform like Twitter, where people seem to make up new acronyms every day due to the 140-character limit?
Well, one of the groups in the consortium, AMO actually participated. There are shared tasks on this actually has already been for some time. They did very well. One answer to yours, which actually is part of the success story that I told you, is that they used heavily word to that as a way not to adapt, it's not the correct term, but more to have a robust representation. That I know, and if you go to the website, you get a pointer to the people tell you about it. That's what we found, is that rather than you can still adapt, and you probably have to adapt, but say, as a bootstrap, having that representation helps, and in particular, short messages help.
Yeah. So is there any relationship to the annotation that you are doing with the automatic meaning representation?
No, no. That's quite, I mean, when we talked about it, it's quite heavy.
Okay. Yeah, this seems pretty light and
yes, yeah. There are various reasons why we cannot afford to have that representation. But it's not just a matter of resources, again. It's also about utility.
Right.
Because summaries have to be designed for the end user who's going to read it. So,
yes.
Any more questions? Thank you again, everyone.
what do I do here? I stop sharing? Or?